The sky above Valora burned orange as another warship entered the atmosphere. Taiho stood on the balcony of the Great Hall, watching the dark shapes descend like metal birds of death. His hands gripped the stone railing so hard that his pale blue knuckles turned white. Behind him, the council chamber was empty now. The elders had fled to the underground shelters hours ago. The screens on the walls showed nothing but static where allied. Channels once broadcast messages of friendship and support. The Amari had lived on Valora for 12,000 years. They had built cities of crystal and light. They had created art that made other species weep with its beauty. They had developed empathic abilities that let them feel the emotions of others, which made violence almost impossible for them. How could you hurt someone when you felt their pain as your own? But now the Dracari had come. They wanted the energy crystals that grew beneath Valora's surface. These crystals powered starships and weapons across the galaxy. The Dracari Empire had conquered 37 worlds in the last century. They did not ask. They took Taiho, turned away from the window, and walked through the empty halls. His footsteps echoed against the marble floors. Paintings of his ancestors watched him pass with sad, knowing eyes. He found his sister Yuna in the medical wing sitting beside their mother's bed. The old woman was dying. Not from the invasion, but from a sickness that had weakened her for many months. Perhaps it was a small mercy, Taiho thought. She would not live to see their world end. Yuna looked up as he entered. Her large eyes, silver like all Amari eyes, were red from crying. She was only 19 years old. Too young for this. Any word from the council? She asked. Taiho shook his head. The Morvani ambassador left this morning. His ship was the last allied vessel in orbit. They are all gone then? Yes. Yuna looked down at their mother's sleeping face. The Theskai promised they would protect us. They signed the treaty themselves. Treaties mean nothing when the Dracari are involved, Taiho said bitterly. The Theskai calculated the cost of war. They decided we were not worth it. The Galactic Council had voted unanimously to stay neutral. They called it a territorial dispute. They said interference would set a dangerous precedent. They offered thoughts and prayers and nothing else. Taiho had watched the vote on the broadcast screen. 53 species. 53 votes. Not a single one for intervention. Some representatives had not even bothered to attend. The Lunari Collective, the richest trading federation in the galaxy, had sent a message expressing deep concern and promising to monitor the situation. The Morvani, with their advanced technology that could have ended the invasion in days, had withdrawn their citizens and sealed their borders. Everyone had abandoned them. A low rumble shook the building. Taiho moved to the window and saw smoke rising from the eastern district. The Dracari had begun their ground assault. We need to move Mother to the shelters, he said. She cannot be moved, Yuna replied. Dr. Kira said any stress could kill her. Staying here will definitely kill her. As if hearing their argument, their mother opened her eyes. She was weak, but her mind was still sharp. She reached out and took both their hands. My children, she whispered. You must survive. Promise me. We promise, Yuna said, tears falling down her cheeks. Their mother smiled weakly. The Amari have survived worse than this. We will endure. We always do. But Taiho knew she was wrong. They had never faced anything like this. The Dracari did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. When they conquered a world, they either enslaved its people or eliminated them entirely. The Amari, with their inability to fight back, would be easy targets. He left Yuna with their mother and went to the communication center. Maybe there was still someone out there, someone who would listen. He sat down at the console and began broadcasting on every frequency. The distress signal went out into the void, carrying the desperate hope of a dying world. This is Taiho of Valora. The Amari people request immediate assistance. We are under attack by the Dracor Empire. Our allies have abandoned us. We have no weapons, no military, no way to defend ourselves. Please, if anyone can hear this message, we need help. He repeated the message again and again. Hours passed. The sounds of battle grew closer. Explosions rocked the city. Screams echoed through the streets. No one answered. Tai-Ho put his head in his hands. This was the end. The end of his people. The end of everything the Amari had built over thousands of years. Then, just as he was about to give up, a light blinked on the console. An incoming signal. From a ship he did not recognize. He opened the channel with trembling fingers. A face appeared on the screen. It was not like any species Tai-Ho had seen before. Soft skin, small eyes, no visible scales or fur. The face looked tired but determined. "This is Captain Park Min-ho of the Earth vessel Horizon," the stranger said. "We received your distress signal. We are 4 hours away from your position." Tai-Ho stared at the screen. Earth. He had heard of them. A young species, barely a century into space travel. They had no great fleet, no powerful weapons, no influence in galactic politics. What could they possibly do? Captain Tai-Ho said carefully, "I am grateful for your response. But you should know what you are flying into. The Dracor have 100 warships in orbit. They have 20,000 ground troops. Your vessel cannot make a difference." The human captain smiled. It was a strange expression, showing teeth in a way that might have seemed threatening on another species. But somehow on this face, it looked warm. "With respect," Min-ho said, "that is not your decision to make. You asked for help. We are coming. But why? You gain nothing from this." The other species, they all refused. They said the cost was too high. There was a pause. The humans seemed to think about the question carefully. "'Cause you asked?" he finally said. "That is all the reason we need." The transmission ended. Tai-Ho sat in silence, staring at the blank screen. Outside, the Dracry warships continued their descent. The ground shook with explosions. The screams of his people filled the air, but for the first time in days, Tai-Ho felt something he had forgotten was possible. Hope a single human ship was coming. 47 crew members against an empire. It was foolish. It was suicide. It made no logical sense, and yet it was more than anyone else had offered. Tai-Ho stood up and walked back to the medical wing. He had to tell Yuna. He had to tell everyone, someone had answered. The humans were coming. The horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Valora's system. Captain Min-ho stood on the bridge, staring at the view screen. What he saw made his stomach tight. Dracor warships filled the space around the planet like a swarm of metal insects. Their dark hulls blocked out the stars. Weapons platforms orbited in formations designed to destroy anything that approached. Lieutenant Sujin stood at the tactical station, her face calm despite the impossible odds. She was the best tactical officer Min-ho had ever served with. Right now, her fingers moved across the controls as she analyzed the enemy fleet. 112 warships, she reported. 24 heavy cruisers, 88 support vessels, orbital weapons platforms, and us, Min-ho asked. 1 exploration vessel with light armor and 4 defensive cannons. Chief Engineer Do-yan laughed from his station. It was not a happy laugh. So basically, we are a bug flying into a room full of boots. Bugs can bite, Min-ho replied. Find me a way through. The crew worked in silence. These were not military people. The Horizon was a science vessel, designed for exploration and research. The 47 souls on board were scientists, engineers, doctors, and pilots, had signed up to discover new worlds, not fight wars. But when the distress signal came, not a single person had voted to ignore it. Hae-yoon, the young pilot, found a gap in the Dracary formation. A small window, only available for 30 minutes, where the patrol ships would leave a corridor unguarded during shift change. It is risky, she said. One mistake, and they see us. Can you do it? Min-ho asked. Hae-yoon grinned. She was only 24, but she could fly better than pilots twice her age. I can do it in my sleep. They waited. The minutes passed slowly. Min-ho watched the enemy ships move on the screen, trying not to think about what would happen if they were caught. When the window opened, Hyun pushed the engines to maximum. The Horizon shot forward, slipping between the warships like a fish through rocks. Warning lights flashed on consoles. The hull groaned under the stress, but they made it through. The planet Valora appeared on the screen. Even from orbit, Minho could see the fires burning across the surface. Cities were in ruins. Smoke covered entire continents. "Find me a landing zone," he ordered. "Somewhere the Drakri have not reached yet." Dr. Nari, the ship's chief medical officer, appeared at his side. She was a small woman with gentle eyes, but Minho knew she had nerves of steel. He'd seen her perform surgery during asteroid storms without flinching. "The medical bay is ready," she said. "Have enough supplies for maybe 200 patients. After that, we improvise. Let us hope we do not need that many." They landed in the northern mountains, where the Amari had retreated to hide from the invasion. The terrain was rough, covered in forests and caves that provided natural cover from orbital scans. When the ship's doors opened, Taiho was waiting. Minho stepped out and got his first real look at the Amari. They were beautiful in a strange way. Tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Their silver eyes reflected light like mirrors. They moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy. Taiho approached slowly. Behind him, dozens of Amari watched with expressions of confusion and wonder. "Captain Minho," Taiho said. His voice was soft, melodic. "I did not believe you would actually come. I said we would." "Yes, but others have said many things that turned out to be lies," Minho understood. The Amari had been betrayed by everyone they trusted. Why would they trust strangers from a species they had never met? "We are not here to make promises," Minho said. "We are here to help. Show me what you need." What they needed was everything. Food, medicine, shelter, weapons. The Amari had fled their cities with almost nothing. Many were injured. All were terrified. Dr. Nari set up a field hospital in a large cave. She worked without rest, treating wounds and sicknesses, learning Amari biology as she went. Yuna helped her, translating and comforting patients who were afraid of the strange humans. "You are very kind," Yuna said to Nari during a brief break. "I am a doctor," Nari replied. "Kindness is part of the job. Not for everyone." The Morvani doctors refused to treat wounded Amari during the evacuation. They said we were not their responsibility. Nari's expression hardened. Then they were not real doctors. Meanwhile, Doyon explored the caves and made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the mountains, he found massive deposits of energy crystals, the same crystals the Dracori wanted so badly. But unlike the peaceful Imari, Doyen looked at the crystals and saw weapons. "These things store incredible amounts of energy," he explained to Minho. "With the right modifications, we could turn them into bombs, or power shields, or beam weapons that could cut through Dracori armor." The Amari never thought to weaponize them. They never thought about weapons at all. It is not in their nature. Minho considered this. The Amari had survived for thousands of years by avoiding conflict, but avoidance was no longer an option. The Dracori would not stop until every Amari was dead or in chains. "Can you build these weapons?" Doyon nodded. "Give me a week." Taiho had been listening. His face showed conflict. "Captain, my people do not fight. We cannot fight. It goes against everything we believe." "I understand," Minho said gently. "We are not asking you to fight. We are asking you to survive." Days passed. The humans worked around the clock, building defenses, treating the sick, training anyone willing to learn basic survival skills. Sergeant Hyunwoo, the security chief, taught small groups how to hide, how to move silently, how to escape if discovered. Then the Dracori found them. A scout ship appeared over the mountains, scanning for life signs. Sujin detected it first and sent a warning. The Amari scattered into the caves, hiding in the darkness. But one group was too slow. A dozen Amari, including several children, were caught in the open. Hyunwoo did not hesitate. He grabbed a rifle and ran toward them, firing at the scout ship to draw its attention. The Dracor turned their weapons on him, ignoring the fleeing civilians. Sujin launched a counterattack from the horizon. Her shots were precise, hitting the scout ship's engines. It crashed into the mountainside in a ball of flame. When the smoke cleared, Hanwoo was lying on the ground, wounded but alive. The Amari children gathered around him, their silver eyes wide with shock. "Why?" one of them asked. "Why did you do that?" Hyunwoo smiled through the pain, "Because that is what humans do." That night, around a small fire, Taiho sat beside Minho. The Amari leader had been quiet for hours, processing everything he had witnessed. "The Dracori will send more scouts," Taiho said. "They will find us eventually." "Yes, your people died today. For us, strangers you never met before." "3 good people," Minho confirmed. "I will carry their names forever." Taiho was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since the humans arrived. "Why? Why do you sacrifice so much for people you do not know? What do you gain?" Minho looked at the fire. The flames danced in his eyes. "Nothing," he said. "We gain nothing. That is not why we do it." "Then why?" "'Cause when someone needs help, you help them. You do not calculate the cost. You do not weigh the benefits. You just help. That is what makes us human." Taiho stared at him. From all his years, through all his people's ancient history, he had never encountered a species like this. Every other race in the galaxy operated on logic, on mutual benefit, on calculated self-interest. But humans were different. And maybe, Taiho thought, that difference would save his people. 3 weeks into the occupation, the mountain stronghold had become a small city of refugees. Nearly 2,000 Amari had found their way to the hidden caves, guided by secret paths and whispered directions. They lived in the darkness, afraid to light fires that might be seen from orbit. Captain Minho stood at the entrance of the main cave, watching the sun set over the burning plains below. Smoke rose from a dozen cities. The Dracori had been thorough in their destruction. Sergeant Hyunwoo limped up beside him. His wounds were healing, but he would carry scars for the rest of his life. He did not seem to mind. "The new volunteers are ready," Hyunwoo said. 30 Amari have agreed to training." Minho nodded. This was progress. For the first 2 weeks, not a single Amari would touch a weapon. The very idea of violence made them physically ill. Their empathic abilities meant they could feel the pain of anyone they hurt. For a species like that, fighting was almost impossible. But desperation was a powerful teacher. The training area was a flat section of cave, floor lit by chemical lights. 30 Amari stood in nervous lines, their silver eyes reflecting the dim glow. They looked uncomfortable, like children forced to do something they knew was wrong. Hyunwoo addressed them in simple terms. "I am not going to teach you to kill. I am going to teach you to survive. There is a difference." He showed them how to move quietly, how to hide, how to use the terrain to their advantage. He taught them to set simple traps and create distractions. Most importantly, he taught them how to run. "Running is not shameful," he said. "Running keeps you alive. A dead hero saves no one." Taiho watched from the shadows. He had not joined the training himself. As a leader, he felt he should set an example. But what example? To fight or to maintain his people's ancient principles of peace? The question tortured him. Lieutenant Sujin approached with a data tablet. She had been planning something for days, studying Dracori patrol patterns and supply lines. Now she was ready. "There's a Dracori supply depot 12 kilometers east," she said. "Lightly guarded. Mostly food and medical supplies." "We need those supplies," Minho admitted. "Our reserves are almost gone. I can lead a team. 6 humans, 4 Amari volunteers. Quick strike in and out before reinforcements arrive." Minho studied the plan. It was risky, but Sujin was the best tactical mind he had. If anyone could pull this off, she could. "Do it," he said. The raid happened that night. Sujin led her team through the darkness, moving like shadows across the landscape. The Amari volunteers proved surprisingly useful. Their empathic abilities let them sense the enemy's emotions, detecting guards before they came into view. The depot was exactly where Sujin predicted. 20 Dracori soldiers guarding a warehouse of supplies. The humans moved first, taking out perimeter guards with silent precision. Then they hit the main building. The battle was short and brutal. Dracori soldiers were fierce fighters, but they were not prepared for a surprise attack. Within minutes, it was over, but 3 humans lay dead on the warehouse floor. Sujin stood over the bodies of her fallen comrades. Her face was stone, but her hands trembled. These were people she had known for years, friends, family. An Amari volunteer named Jisoo approached slowly. She was young, barely older than Yuna. She knelt beside one of the dead humans and placed her hand on his chest. "I can feel it," she whispered. The echo of his last moments. He was not afraid. He was proud. Sujin looked at her. Proud? He knew he was protecting others. That gave him peace. The team loaded the supplies onto transport carts and began the long journey back to the caves. They moved in silence, carrying their dead with them. When they returned, the entire refugee camp gathered for a funeral. Amari tradition called for a ceremony of shared grief, where everyone present would use their empathic abilities to connect and experience the loss. Together, the humans were hesitant at first. They were not used to sharing their emotions so openly. But Dr. Neri stepped forward and took an Amari's hand. Others followed. What happened next changed everything. The Amari felt human grief for the first time. It was different from their own, sharper, more intense, mixed with anger and determination in ways the Amari did not understand. But beneath it all was something beautiful. A fierce love for others that burned like fire, and the humans felt Amari grief. Gentle, deep, connected to all living things. A sorrow that encompassed not just the dead, but all death everywhere, across all time. When the ceremony ended, both species understood each other in ways words could never achieve. That night, Doyan finished his first crystal weapon. It was crude, just a rifle-sized device that focused energy through a modified crystal lens. But when he tested it on a piece of Drackery armor taken from the raid, the beam cut through like sunlight through fog. "We can make more," he said. "Lots more. The caves are full of crystals." Meanwhile, Dr. Nari had made her own discovery. She had been working with Yuna, studying Amari empathic abilities. Together, they found that Yuna's gifts were unusually strong. She could sense emotions from great distances, even through walls and underground. With training, Nari said, she could detect Drackery movements from kilometers away, better than any scanner. Using her abilities at that range caused Yuna tremendous pain. Each session left her exhausted and weak. "I can do it," Yuna insisted. "For my people. For everyone." Taiho was not sure. His little sister was all the family he had left. Their mother had died peacefully 3 days after the humans arrived, surrounded by loved ones. He could not bear to lose Yuna too. "The choice is hers," Minho said gently. "We cannot make it for her." Days passed. The resistance grew stronger. More Amari joined the training. More crystal weapons were built. A network of scouts spread across the mountains, watching enemy movements and reporting back. Then Heyoon intercepted a transmission that changed everything. "Rikori reinforcements," she announced grimly. "The main fleet? 50 more warships and 100,000 ground troops. They will arrive in 15 solar cycles." 15 days. That was all the time they had. Minho gathered everyone together. Humans and Amari stood side by side in the great cave, their faces lit by flickering torches. He looked at them and felt a strange mix of pride and sorrow. "I will not lie to you," he said. "We cannot win this war. We are too few and they are too many. When those reinforcements arrive, they will sweep across these mountains and destroy everything we have built." The crowd was silent. Some wept. Others simply stared with empty eyes. But Minho continued, "That does not mean we stop fighting. Every day we resist is another day the galaxy sees what is happening here. Every day we hold on is another chance for someone to step forward and help." "No one will help," an Amari voice called out. "They all abandoned us." They did. "And maybe they will continue to do nothing. But maybe, just maybe, they will see what we are doing here and feel ashamed. Maybe they will remember what it means to stand for something greater than themselves." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "We are soldiers. We know how to fight against impossible odds. Every one of us will give our lives to protect this place." Sujin joined him. "We will make them pay for every inch of ground." Doyen held up a crystal weapon. "And we will give them a surprise they never expected." One by one, the humans stepped forward. 44 of them remained. 44 against an empire. Then something remarkable happened. Taiho walked to the front of the crowd. He picked up a crystal rifle from the weapons pile. The weight felt strange in his hands. Wrong. Everything about it violated his people's ancient beliefs, but he held it anyway. "I've spent my whole life believing that violence is never the answer," he said. "And I still believe that. But I also believe that survival has value. If we die here, our culture dies with us. Our art, our music, our wisdom, everything we have built across 12,000 years, it all disappears." He looked at Minho. "You came to help us when no one else would. The least we can do is help ourselves." Other Amari stepped forward, then more. Within minutes, nearly 300 Amari had volunteered to fight. It was not an army. It was barely a militia. But it was something, and sometimes something was enough. The Dracari fleet arrived on the 15th day, exactly as predicted. 50 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, joining the 100 already in orbit. The sky above Valora turned dark with enemy vessels. On the ground, General Corvus, the Dracari commander, broadcast a message across all frequencies. "Attention, Amari survivors. This is your final warning. Surrender now, and you will be granted the mercy of servitude. Continue to resist, and you will be erased from existence. You have 1 hour to decide." In the mountain caves, Minho listened to the message with a grim smile. He turned to his crew. "Jujin, what is the status of our defenses?" "Crystal weapon emplacements are in position across all mountain passes. The minefield is active. All fighters are armed and ready, Doyon. The planetary defense network is charged and waiting. When I flip this switch, every crystal deposit on this continent will activate. We will only get one shot, but it will be one heck of a shot. Ayun? The horizon is patched up and ready to fly. She will not win any beauty contests, but she can still fight." Minho nodded. He looked around at his crew. 44 humans remained. Beside them stood 300 Amari volunteers, many holding weapons for the first time in their lives. Against them stood over 100,000. Dracari soldiers in a fleet that could destroy planets. The numbers did not matter. "Everyone knows the plan," Minho said. "Hold the ground as long as possible. Protect the civilian shelters. Make them pay for every centimeter." He paused and looked at each face. Some he had known for years. Others he had only met weeks ago. All of them had become family. "I am proud of every single one of you. Whatever happens today, remember that we chose to be here. We chose to fight, and that choice means something." The hour passed quickly. When the deadline expired, the Dracari attack began. They came from every direction. Dropships filled the sky like swarms of insects. Ground troops advanced through the valleys in endless waves. Orbital bombardment shook the mountains. Hume Wu commanded the defense of the Eastern Pass. He had 50 fighters under his command, a mix of humans and Amari. They crouched behind stone walls, waiting for the enemy to enter the kill zone. "Steady," Hume Wu said through the radio. "Wait for my signal." The first Dracari soldiers appeared. They were massive creatures, covered in thick scales and armed with plasma weapons. They moved with the confidence of conquerors who had never faced real resistance. Now, Hyunwoo shouted. Crystal beams cut through the morning air. Drakkar soldiers fell by the dozens, their armor useless against the focused energy. The enemy charge faltered, then stopped, but more soldiers came. Always more. The battle raged for hours. Hyunwoo's position was hit again and again. Each attack was repelled, but at a terrible cost. Half his fighters were dead or wounded by midday. A plasma bolt struck him in the leg, burning through flesh and bone. He collapsed behind a rock, blood pooling beneath him. An Amari medic crawled to his side and began treating the wound. "Sir, we need to evacuate you," the medic said. Hyunwoo pushed him away. "I am not leaving." "Hand me that rifle." He propped himself against the rock and continued firing. His leg was ruined, but his aim was still perfect. Every shot found its target in orbit. The horizon flew directly into the Dracari fleet. Captain Minho sat in the command chair, watching enemy ships fill the view screen. Hayun's hands danced across the controls, spinning the vessel through impossible maneuvers that made even experienced pilots gasp. Drawing fire, Sujin reported. 7 cruisers are pursuing us. That is 7 cruisers, not bombing the surface. Keep them interested, Minho ordered. The horizon was not meant for combat, but Dojan had modified it with crystal weapons. Blue beams lanced out, striking enemy ships and causing explosions that lit up the darkness of space. A missile struck the horizon's rear section. The ship shuddered violently. Warning alarms screamed.
Ah!
Engine 2 is gone, Doyan shouted. We are losing power. Keep her flying, Minho, said calmly. We are not done yet. On the surface, Yuna sat in a small cave near the front lines. Her eyes were closed, her body trembling as she pushed her empathic abilities to their absolute limit. Around her, Dr. Nari monitored her vital signs with growing concern. Enemy reinforcements approaching the Western Valley, Yuna said through gritted teeth. 2,000 soldiers. They will arrive in 20 minutes. Nari relayed the information to Sujin, who redirected defenders to meet the threat. You need to rest, Nari said to Yuna. Cannot rest. They need me. Blood trickled from Yuna's nose. Her skin had gone pale. She was pushing herself beyond safe limits. Yuna, please. You will kill yourself. Then I die helping, Yuna replied. Better than dying hiding? Taiho fought in the southern pass alongside his people. The crystal rifle in his hands had become familiar now. He no longer flinched when he fired. He no longer felt guilt when enemies fell. He felt something else instead. Not rage, not hatred. Just a cold determination to survive. An Amari elder named Bora fought beside him. She was 200 years old, ancient even by Amari standards. Her hands shook when she held her weapon, but her aim was steady. I never thought I would see this day, she said between shots. Imari fighting like warriors. We are not warriors, Taiho replied. We are survivors. Perhaps that is the same thing. A Drakari charge broke through the defensive line. Soldiers poured into the pass, overwhelming the defenders. Taiho fell back, firing as he went. Then he saw it. A Drakari soldier standing over a wounded Imari, raising his blade for the killing blow. The victim was a child, no more than 10 years old. Taiho did not think. He charged. His body slammed into the Drakari soldier, knocking the blade aside. They fell together, rolling across the rocky ground. The enemy was bigger, stronger. But Taiho had something the Drakor did not expect. He had rage. When it was over, Taiho stood over the dead soldier, breathing heavily. The child stared at him with wide, frightened eyes. Go, Taiho said. Run to the shelters now. The child ran. Taiho picked up his rifle and returned to the fight. In orbit, the Drakari command ship loomed above the battle. From its bridge, General Corvus watched the fighting with growing frustration. This was supposed to be a simple extermination. Instead, it had become a war. How are we losing to 40 humans? He demanded. His officers had no answer. Sujin's voice crackled over the horizon's damaged communications system. I am detecting a weakness in the command ship's shields. There is a gap near the engine section. If we can hit it precisely, we can cause a chain reaction. Can you make that shot? Minho asked. I can try, but we need to get closer. Minho looked at his crew. They all knew what getting closer meant. The horizon was barely holding together. One more hit might destroy them. Do it, he said. Hayun pushed the dying ship toward the enemy flagship. Drakori weapons fire filled the space around them. The hull breached in 3 places. Crew members died at their stations, but Hayun kept flying. At the last moment, Sujin fired. A single crystal beam, perfectly aimed, struck the command ship's weak point. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the flagship exploded. The blast was enormous, consuming nearby Drakari vessels in a wave of fire. General Corvus died instantly, along with the entire command structure of the invasion force. And in that moment of chaos, Doyen activated the planetary defense network. Across the continent, Massive crystal formations erupted with stored energy. Pillars of blue light shot into the sky, striking orbiting warships. The Dracari fleet, already confused by the loss of their flagship, was torn apart. The battle was not over, but the tide had turned. On the ground, Hunhua watched the sky fill with falling ships. Burning debris streaked across the atmosphere like shooting stars. Around him, his surviving fighters cheered. But the cheering died quickly. 22 humans were dead. Over 100 Amari had fallen. The caves were filled with wounded. The price of victory was written in blood. Minho sat on the damaged bridge of the horizon, looking at the empty chairs where his crew once sat. Half of them were gone now. Friends, family, heroes. He closed his eyes and whispered their names. One by one, outside, the remaining Dracari ships retreated. They had come to conquer a helpless world. Instead, they found something they never expected: resistance, and it had cost them everything. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Valora. The city of Solara was being rebuilt. Where ruins once stood, new buildings rose from the ground. They were different from the old structures. Stronger, built to withstand attacks. The Amari had learned that beauty alone was not enough. Survival required strength. Tejo stood on a balcony overlooking the construction. He was the leader of the Amari provisional government now, chosen by his people to guide them through this new chapter of their history. The responsibility weighed heavily on him, but he no longer faced it alone. Captain Minho walked up beside him. The human commander looked older than he had 6 months ago. Gray touched his hair. Lines marked his face. War had aged him. "Memorial is finished," Minho said. They walked together to the center of the city, where a great plaza had been created. In its center stood a monument, a tall pillar of crystal carved with names, human names and Amari names, side by side. Tejo read, some of them aloud. Hunwu, Jasubora 22, Hunsu. Humans and 117 Amari had died in the battle. Their sacrifice had saved thousands. "They will never be forgotten," Tejo said. No, Minho agreed. "They will not." Round the plaza, people gathered for the memorial ceremony. Imari and humans stood together, united by shared grief and shared hope. Dr. Nari held Yuna's hand. The young Amari woman had nearly died, pushing her abilities too far during the battle. Her recovery was slow, but she smiled now when she saw her brother, far above Valora. Ships from a dozen species orbited the planet, not to attack. To help, the galaxy had watched the Battle of Valora with growing amazement. News feeds across every civilization showed footage of 47 humans standing against an empire. They showed Amari picking up weapons for the first time. They showed the explosion of the Dracari flagship and the retreat of the invasion fleet. And they showed something else. They showed the species that had abandoned the Imari. They showed the empty seats at the Galactic Council. They showed the Morvani ambassadors fleeing while civilians burned. They showed the Theskai warriors, who broke their oaths. The galaxy saw who had stood up and who had run away. Shame was a powerful force. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session 2 months after the battle. For the first time in history, human representative was invited to address the assembly. Ambassador Yunji stood at the central podium, facing representatives from 53 species. Some looked at her with respect. Others could not meet her eyes. The Morvani representative spoke first. "We wish to express our deepest regrets for the tragic events on Valora. Our withdrawal was a strategic decision based on careful analysis of the situation." Yunji's voice was calm and cold. "You calculated the cost of intervention and decided the Amari were not worth saving. The odds were against success. Intervention would have cost Morvani lives. 47 humans intervened. 22 of them died. The rest are still standing." Silence filled the chamber. "You asked what we gained?" Yanji continued. "Nothing. We gained nothing. We lost friends, colleagues, people we loved. We lost years of our lives to trauma that will never fully heal." She looked around the room. "But we also gained something you cannot understand. We gained the knowledge that when faced with impossible odds, we did not run. We did not calculate. We did not abandon innocent people to die. The Theskai representative shifted uncomfortably. His species prided themselves on warrior honor. The human's words cut deep. What do you want from this council? Someone asked. Justice Yunji replied, not revenge, not punishment. Just acknowledgement that what happened was wrong, and a commitment that it will never happen again. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council officially condemned the abandonment of Valora. New treaties were drafted, requiring member species to respond to distress calls. A defense fund was established to protect vulnerable worlds. It was not enough. It could never undo what had been done. But it was a start. Back on Valora, the memorial ceremony concluded with a moment of silence. 2,000 Amari and 44 humans stood together under the setting sun, remembering those who had fallen. When it was over, Minho found Taiho standing alone by the monument. I received orders today, Minho said. Earth is sending a new ship, the Horizon 2. Bigger crew, better weapons. They want me to captain it. Congratulations. You deserve it. There is more. They want Imari crew members. Cultural exchange, they call it. Building connections between our peoples. Know someone who would volunteer? Yuna appeared beside them, grinning. She had been listening from nearby. Her empathic abilities made hiding intentions from her almost impossible. I already submitted my application, she said. Dr. Nari helped me with the medical forms. Taiho hugged his sister. He did not want her to leave. But he understood. She had changed during the war. They all had. The old life of peaceful isolation was gone. The Amari would need to learn to live among other species now. And Yuna would be the first to build those bridges. In the weeks that followed, aid ships arrived from across the galaxy. The Lunari Collective sent credits and construction materials. The Theskai sent warriors to train the new Amari Defense Force. Even the Morvani, desperate to repair their reputation, contributed advanced technology. Hyun Woo stayed on Valora. His leg had been saved by Amari medical technology, though he walked with a limp now. The Amari Defense Academy offered him a position as lead instructor. He accepted. These people need teachers, he explained to Minho, not warriors who teach them to kill. Teachers who show them how to protect themselves without losing who they are. His first class of students included 40 Amari volunteers. They were nervous and uncertain, but they had chosen to be there. That was enough. Sujin took a position with the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, helping to build rapid response teams that could reach threatened worlds quickly. She would never let another species suffer the way the Imari had suffered. Doyan stayed on Valora too, working with Amari scientists to develop new technologies. Crystal energy had applications beyond weapons, medicine, transportation, communication. He saw a future where the Amari would be known not just as victims, but as innovators. Dr. Nari established a permanent medical exchange program between Earth and Valora. Human doctors came to learn Amari healing techniques. Amari healers traveled to Earth to study human medicine. Together, they developed treatments neither species could have created alone. 1 year after the battle, Taiho addressed his people for the anniversary celebration. The plaza was packed with Amari and visitors from across the galaxy. Ships from 20 species orbited overhead. 1 year ago, we faced extinction, Taiho said. Our allies abandoned us. Our cities burned. Our people died. We had no hope. He paused, looking at the crowd. Then 47 strangers appeared in our sky. They did not know us. They did not owe us anything. They had nothing to gain and everything to lose, and yet they came. Minho stood in the crowd, listening. Beside him were the surviving human crew members and dozens of Imari who had become their friends. We asked them why, Taiho continued. Why risk your lives for strangers? Why sacrifice everything for people you never met? He smiled. Their answer changed everything we believed about the universe. They said, because you asked for help. That is all the reason we need. Applause erupted across the plaza. Humans and Amari embraced. Species that had abandoned the Amari stood watching, reminded of their shame and inspired to be better. Later that night, a young Amari child approached Taiho. She was perhaps 6 years old, with wide silver eyes and pale blue skin. Her mother stood nervously nearby. "Sir," the child said, "I have a question." Taiho knelt to her level. "Ask, why did the humans come when nobody else would?" Taiho thought about the question. He had asked it himself many times. He had heard Minho's answer, but now he understood it in a different way, because he said gently, "Humans do not ask if helping is wise. They do not calculate the costs or measure the benefits. They only ask one question, is it right?" The child considered this, and helping us was right. Yes, helping anyone who needs it is always right. That is what the humans taught us. That is what we must never forget. Above them, stars filled the sky. Somewhere out there, the Horizon 2 was already flying toward its next mission. Yuna was aboard, learning to be part of a crew that would respond to the next distress signal, wherever it came from. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. There would be more wars, more suffering, more abandoned peoples crying out for help. But now they would not cry alone, because humanity had shown the universe what it meant to stand up for others. And the universe, slowly, was beginning to learn. On the memorial pillar, one phrase had been carved beneath all the names. It was in both human and Amari script, visible to everyone who passed. It read, "The galaxy measured worth in power. Humans measured it in people." That was the lesson of Valora. That was the gift the humans left behind, and it would echo across the stars forever.